Hello and welcome to EURACTIV's Agrifood Brief. I'm Natasha Foote and here's your weekly update on all things agriculture and food in the EU from EURACTIV's Agrifood news team. Our top story of the week: the European Parliament has had its first say on the new Commission's flagship environmental policy, the New Green Deal, calling for binding reduction targets for hazardous pesticides and food waste. Although non-binding, the resolution voted in Strasbourg on Wednesday gives us a sneak peek on what the main points of contention will be in the forthcoming months. In other news, the food labelling war shows no sign of abating anytime soon. MPs have spoken out this week against the fake news campaign put in place by the Italian agri-food sector about the nutrition label known as Nutri-Score. The MEPs want the nutrition label to be mandatory at the EU level and be embedded in the farm to fork strategy. The UK government has introduced new legislation which ensures that farming subsidies will continue to be paid to UK farmers for 2020. Could Germany impose a tax on meat? Germany's agricultural minister has once again raised the issue of introducing a meat tax, something animal welfare activists have been demanding for years. The European Commission decided this week not to renew the approval of a neonicotinoid pesticide called thiacloprid. The decision was taken after scientific evidence from EFSA concluded that the substance presents both health and environmental concerns. After a controversial Apocalypse Cow documentary recently suggested that we may soon see the end of all farming, EURACTIV examined the cultured meat market and found that cultured meat could be on the EU market as early as 2022. Lastly, on Tuesday, the EU Commissioner for Trade, Phil Hogan, started his 4-day visit to the US with a mission: to prevent the Trump administration from putting punitive tariffs on EU agri-food products. However, ironically, foodstuff exports to the US have actually been on the rise, thanks to the announcement itself. Now for the agri-food news from the capitals this week, starting with France, where, despite setting out bold aims to reduce the use of pesticides by 50% by 2025, France has actually seen a large increase in the sales of pesticide protection products in 2018. This weekend, Berlin will be hosting both the International Green Week and a large agricultural protest fueled by discontent with government policies and the agricultural industry. The latest news from the UK is that Edwin Poots has been named as Northern Ireland's new agricultural minister. His role is likely to come under increased scrutiny as farmers face uncertainty over subsidies and trade post-Brexit. Italy's Apulia region, the so-called heel of Italy's boot, renowned for its wine, olive oil and durum wheat, may lose out on up to €142 million in CAP subsidies due to delays in programming and red tape. In Spain, low prices given to Spanish producers continue to be a key issue for Spanish farmers. Olive oil producers have been particularly affected and, despite the fact that Brussels has opened 3 tenders for private storage, these have not yet led to an improvement in the situation. Greek winemakers are worried about the possibility of US tariffs on EU wine. In a statement, they said that such a scenario would be catastrophic for the Greek wine sector, as exports to the US market have been crucial in the past 5 years. In Poland, according to the data by the General Veterinary Inspectorate released this week, there were over 200 cases of African swine fever in Poland in the last 3 weeks of 2019. And the total number of swine fever cases increased in 2019 when compared with 2018. The Bulgarian food industry warns of a rise in the price of all food products in 2020 due to the introduction of new tolls for the transport sector. The National Union of Bakers and Pastry Makers have announced that bread producers expect tolls will have a serious impact on prices. In Romania, young farmers could benefit for the first time from access to agricultural land owned by the Romanian state, Agricultural Minister Adrian Oros said this week in a news conference. Lastly, the Croatian Prime Minister has said that encouraging small family farms and young farmers will be the focus of the Croatian presidency regarding the new CAP and the EU multi-annual financial framework negotiations. On our radar this week, Romania's Minister for Agriculture met with the French ambassador to Bucharest to discuss the two countries' positions on the next CAP and the Romanian-French partnership. A new geographical indications database has been created by the Commission. The database now centralises all terms protected by geographical indications. Upcoming events for your agenda this week includes the Global Food Forum in Berlin, an international conference on agri-food policy issues, which will be held between the 16th and the 18th of January. There is also a Euro Co-op roundtable focusing on ethically sound supply chains, a consumer cooperative perspective. This will take place on the 23rd of January. Lastly, there is a conference on reinventing agricultural and food policy held by the parliamentary group, the European United Left and Nordic Green Left, on the 30th of January. The conference will focus on proposals for the CAP reform that support sustainability. For a sneak peek of the news coming your way soon, be sure to look out for EURACTIV's special report on bioeconomy, which is in collaboration with other members of the EURACTIV network and will be translated into 7 languages. This will be published on the 20th of January. On the 23rd of January, EURACTIV will be holding an Agrifood Twitter chat about how the CAP can respond to climate change. Watch out as well for coverage of the European Landowners event, which will explore innovative agricultural solutions for making the EU climate positive. This week, the podcast was produced by EURACTIV's Agrifood news team, Natasha Foote and Gerardo Fortuna, with technical support from Malti Ketterson. My name is Natasha Foote. Thanks for listening. See you next week.